Hi everyone, I'm Claudia Aliff. Thank you to YPT Philadelphia for inviting me to be part of Meet and Greet March. Um, I'll just kind of walk you guys through who I am, how I got where I am, which is a planner at SEPTA, and then what my day-to-day looks like, and then kind of like a number of exciting projects that I'm working on. So my name is Claudia Aliff. I am a planner at SEPTA in the Strategic Planning and Analysis Department. I went to Tufts University in Boston and I did a BA in American Studies and Urban Studies. And then I worked for a little bit in Germany. And then I came back and did a Master of City Planning at UPenn. And then I'm now at SEPTA. I interned at the FTA, at the MBTA, and Otis. So basically, have been in transportation my whole career, and I'll talk a little bit about that today. So, how did I get where I am? I started college undecided, and so I really needed to dig deep to figure out where I wanted to go after graduating. So I came in not knowing. I had to figure out what questions to ask myself to figure that out. So basically I looked at what I liked the most academically to really break down what felt really daunting, which is what do you want to do with the rest of your life. So I thought about what I like. So I like thinking about history and context. I like thinking about the way people relate to each other and to space. And then I thought about things that I was just naturally inclined towards. So what did I like to do? Like for fun, I liked to play SimCity, which is basically every urban planner's story. Is I wouldn't like to start at the beginning, but the beginning is always SimCity. So SimCity, I liked really drawing like floor plans and thinking about space. And so um combining those together, I figured out that what I really wanted to do was something like urban planning. I thought I kind of looked hard at what I really cared about and what I really enjoyed doing and tried to think about how to make that into a career. So I like to think about history, I like to think about sociology, and I liked to draw and I liked to think about space. So I thought, ooh, urban planning might be it. It also kind of allowed me the opportunity to focus on sort of interdisciplinary studies, which is what liberal arts kind of is at Tufts, rather than kind of honing in on a profession early on. So I think again, like I'm saying, planning is an interdisciplinary field that combines, and I'm moving me myself. I'm not sure if you can see me, but if you can, I'm down at the bottom. It's an interdisciplinary field that combines land use, policy, thinking about the built environment, data, the natural environment, transportation to really improve public welfare. So planners can look at data and analyze it. They can be kind of more focused on architecture, engineering, or design. They can be thinking a little more strategic and comprehensively for organizations or for communities. They can be thinking about policies, and they can really just make sure that people's voices are involved in all of that. And so I think it's a really exciting field. It's a field that lets you do almost anything you want. I think having that clear goal allowed me to really venture, like I said, into sociology, history, architecture, politics, while then kind of forcing me to use extracurriculars and internships to really refine professional skills and understand my professional interests. So, that's kind of how I ended up in transportation. I started with internships at the T in Boston at the and the FTA. I did it through COMTO, the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials. And this really kind of led me to understand that transportation was the thread that kind of sewed everything together in planning, and I think was one of the best ways to make an impact. And that's why I've stuck with it through the years. I think it also kind of ignited a desire to explore concrete skills. So my internships were very policy focused and admin focused. So I thought about the fact that I really wanted to I thought back to why I wanted to be a planner, and that was really because I liked designing and spending time on the computer, kind of expressing my ideas. And so learning hard skills like Adobe Suite and 3D modeling and urban design was a way to do that. And I was able to do that at school, and then later on, or in undergrad, and then later on also in grad school. Once I graduated, I moved to Germany and started work as a network planner at Flixbus. This was a real opportunity to work on things that were a little more concrete, so something more service oriented than policy oriented. This was a great place to work. I was not only doing technical stuff, so like planning schedules, planning routes, but also thinking about new markets, where to go, how to work with partners, and really just kind of part of a young organization, which I think in planning, you're kind of largely either a consultant or in the public sector. So this was a kind of a really great job for kind of someone out of college to have a good time, but also really learn and push myself. I think that taking that space between undergrad and my master's degree to work really gave me a clear vision of my interests. I was able to pursue what I wanted to pursue right after college, which was something much more technical. But then by the end of that, I realized, okay, I do want to go back into the comprehensive, sort of strategic piece of planning. So I chose a program that was professionally oriented and taught me skills that I wouldn't really have an easy time learning on my own. So things like GIS, the Adobe Suite, 3D modeling, R, data viz using Python, presentation skills. We definitely were forced to present a lot all the time. And then also studios and real life application. I'm actually an instructor for the first year studio that all the students do, which is basically they have to figure out how to create a plan. And so I think this was a great opportunity to really focus on a great choice by me to choose a program that was pretty professionally oriented in a field that can really feel daunting because it can kind of go in any direction. While I was there, I interned at the city's Office of Transportation at Otis, and it was deep COVID, so I was working on the bike network. I was creating communication to understand to have people understand the projects that were going on in the bike network. So the Philly bike network is growing all the time. We have one of the best in the country. The work being done there is really amazing. So I was working to communicate that to the public and working to translate that into things like using GIS, using Adobe, using Excel, and using Remix to kind of translate that into, what those bike lanes would actually look like on the street. I also created memos, so trying to really help the organization understand, what the benefits of parking maximums might be. After I graduated grad school, I decided to pursue a job in the public sector. I think the public sector allows you to really have a direct impact on your community. There's a lot of opportunities to grow within an organization and outside of it. You can kind of leave the public sector to be a consultant or to work, anywhere else. The work is really challenging. You're contending with like funding and service issues and a legacy system, so an old system. But I think that's what kind of makes it fun. You're not really just tasked with like an easy thing to develop. You're really working through challenges and trying to kind of find the right approach. So yeah, it's really fun and exciting. And so I'll kind of tell you a little bit about the day-to-day at SEPTA and kind of some of the fun work that we're doing. So there's no such thing as a typical day, but kind of falls into categories. So admin work, so emails, timesheets, updating, project schedules and work plans, things like project management. I wanted to focus on project management. I think it's really important to talk to your supervisor about your goals when you kind of start your career and to really think about what they are for yourself. So some people think project management is really boring, and that's totally fine. I happen to really like it. I think it gives me a kind of like it makes me excited about thinking about processes and the timeline. So, project management can look like creating project scopes, meeting with consultants, project meetings, reviewing documents, coordinating with other departments. And then there's things like analysis. So basically taking data and then turning it into something that tells a story. And another really huge thing is storytelling. So basically we have to take everything that we're getting and turning it into something that people can understand. And that's kind of the planner's main job, is to tell me something compelling from what we're finding about people, about space, about our infrastructure. And so we might do that, just by a presentation, or we might do that using visual tools like Adobe Suite or 3D modeling. We also do public engagement, so things like public meetings, virtual presentations, again, making things easy to understand by the public, facilitating feedback sessions, replying to inquiries, taking feedback and turning it into actionable goals and objectives. That's one of the most exciting things about kind of being in project management, is that you get to have a say in how the data that we're collecting gets turned into actionable items. And then, of course, then there's professional development. So we might go to things like conferences, like giving presentations, preparing those presentations for other people, and then attending the conferences themselves. I think part of being a working professional is being part of a professional organization or a couple. I'm actually a co-chair for the Learn from a Leader committee in the or subcommittee in the professional development committee for WTS. So if you see any events this summer, please let me know that you're going to be coming. And then things like supplemental courses. So things like project management, professional certifications like the AICP or PE, and then things like relevant courses. So I took a class in railroad planning when I was preparing for my main project at SEPTA, which is reimagining regional rail, because I'm not a rail person by nature. So I wanted to make sure that I understood what was going on. I think it's important that the people working on these projects know what's going on, so that, we're able to do it in the best way possible. So talking about regional rail, talking about these projects, what are some of the really exciting things I'm working on at SEPTA? So basically, as a planner in strategic planning and analysis, my goal is to make sure that all SEPTA projects feed into a lifestyle network of transit services. What is a lifestyle network of transit services? It's a network of services that's frequent, easy to use, and integrated. It's a network that people can rely on to take trips at any time of day, at any time of the week, for any purpose. So it's really something that makes your life easier, that is a happy choice that you make, and you can take it, you can take any mode. You can take the bus, the train, or any kind of train. So 3 main projects anchor this work. So Project Metro, Reimagining Regional Rail, and Bus Revolution. Reimagining Regional Rail is sort of the project I'm working on the most. It's a vision for how regional rail can be reimagined to fit into this lifestyle network. Right now, it sort of lives in its own bubble because of fare, because of frequency, and just a lot of the things that make it really difficult to kind of connect it to the rest of SEPTA. So we're going to identify infrastructure, equipment, operations, and policies that we need to get there. I think our pitch is that we have the best regional rail infrastructure in North America. We're fully electrified, which most other networks, cannot say. We go where people want to go. We're mostly double tracked. We have very little freight interference. So we really have a great foundation, but we're still leaving people behind. So, our cost is pretty high compared to every other mode. We're not fully accessible. And then we have pretty low frequencies. We have, maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour in the core of the system. And that really doesn't help us compete with cars. It doesn't really help us compete with other modes. The way that we're approaching figuring out what's working and what isn't is we're using outreach. So we went on and off the system. We don't just want to hear from people who are riders. We want to hear from people who are not riders. And we did this through pop-ups, open houses, transit talks, community workshops, focus groups, because we weren't hearing from, certain specific people, particularly people of color. And then, so I think what we're doing is we're trying to imagine a regional rail system that's easier to access, that's addressing those needs, that's easier to access, better connected, more reliable, more frequent. So it's a really great project. It's really exciting. Other things I'm working on at SEPTA are and the end of line study. That's a study that's kind of coming together with Bus Revolution, which is our bus network redesign, to make sure that we're maximizing the end of lines. So where our bus is turning around and where our operators are ultimately going to the restroom, taking a break between routes. I've also finished the Navy Yard transit study, which is looking at transit to the Navy Yard as it grows beyond just like a BSL extension. Realistically, bus might be the best way to approach transit at the Navy Yard first. We are doing I'm leading gender and race focus groups. So what came out of our outreach was that there was sort of a discrepancy between what women and people of color wanted. So we want to kind of dive into that. I get to manage the website, which I think is pretty fun. Oops. Excuse me. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. I get to manage the website. And I get to, look at ridership recovery on a short-term basis. So, what else do I do? I create documents. So I took all the pieces of information from our outreach, and I summarized them into sort of a digestible document that took away, like that spelled out takeaways. So we did that for Bus Revolution, Reimagining Regional Rail, the web and mobile app. And we even did a sort of intro section for our capital budget so that it was easier to understand for people. It's often not clear why we're spending millions of dollars on, one interlocking on the railroad, but that interlocking might release a bottleneck that can unlock, 5-minute service instead of 30-minute service, meaning people can take better trips, more frequent trips, and really kind of build towards that lifestyle network. So overall planning is super exciting. You can really make it your own. Same goes for transportation. I think I'm talking a little bit about transportation in the planning sense. But you can work in the private sector, the public sector, and development. You can really carve out your own niche. You can be super data driven. You can be more policy oriented. You can be a designer, like on a street designer, a railroad designer. Well, that's an engineer, but you can really kind of make it your own if this is kind of your interest. And I think it's really exciting. So if you have any questions or you'd like to chat, just email me at califf@septa.org, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Claudia Aliff. So yeah, thank you so much to YPT for inviting me to do this. And yeah, please reach out if you have any questions. Thanks.